Virtual events are no longer just about smooth streaming. They're becoming prime targets for cyber threats. From execution impersonation or executive impersonation to AI-driven data leaks, today's online gatherings carry hidden risks that can cost you and your organization more than just a bad connection. In this episode, we dive into why security, not convenience, must lead your event strategy, especially if you're doing them online, and what you can do right now to stay protected. Welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast, the Security Awareness Series. This is episode 313. Where did I come up with one? This is 313, if you can believe that. Triple of what I just said. I'm Chris Hadnaghi, CEO and founder of Social Engineer LLC, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering. And I've been hosting this podcast since back in 2009, if you can believe that. As always, our sponsor message is brought to you by socialengineer.com. So if you're looking for a social engineering risk assessment, what is that? Sometimes you're C-level, you might be concerned. Are there things out there that they might fall victim to if a malicious actor was to hit them up with this? Our service goes and it dives deep into the internet to find all the details on your C-level and then audit them and test them with phishing, vishing, and smishing attacks that in a safe environment will tell you if there's vulnerability in your C-level. If you want more information on that, just go to social-engineer.com, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to meet to discuss this. As always, if you're interested in the topic of SE, we have a Slack channel that has over 1,800 people in there now every day talking about different aspects of SE. Even there's a job board. You can find the link in the show notes. Sometimes it does time out. So if that happens, just hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll be glad to get it to you. I want to invite everyone who's listening to take a minute to go visit innocentlivesfoundation.org. For 8 years now, we've been supporting that nonprofit with its mission of geolocating people who traffic children and who create child abuse material. And I'm so proud to say that we are over 570 cases handed into law enforcement globally. I'm so proud of the people over there. And if you want to support us with voluntary donations, as we're a nonprofit, you can do that. Or if you're a caregiver and need information for you and your family, you can find that out at innocentlivesfoundation.org. And if you like the music on the show, it's none other than Clutch. As always, you know it's one of my favorite bands, and Neil helped me start the ILF, so we always give them a big shout out. We always thank you for your thumbs up, your likes, and your questions. Keep them coming, because as you ask questions on the comments, we always use that to come up with our next month's topics. Now let's get to why we're all here. Our topic of discussion. So I want to invite our guest, Trent Waterhouse. He's the CMO of GlobalMeet, a leading virtual event technology company with a scalable, flexible, and secure hybrid event streaming platform built and supported by experienced event experts. Trent has a proven track record of driving growth and innovation with 35 years of expertise, leveraging a field sales marketing model that aligns sales, marketing, and research and development to think like a customer, act like a partner, and measure success through customer satisfaction and net promoters. Trent, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Chris. Very, very pleased to join you.
So I always start off with this question because it's an interesting one. How did you get to where you are today? I mean, did you just wake up one day and say, this is going to be my life? Or what was the path for you to get right here?
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate throughout my career that I can live where I want to and, work remotely. And it's something that the technology industry has made possible. And, when I was coming out of school, that was back in the 1990s. And, this is, if you will, pre-internet as we know it today and pre-video as we know it today. And my world started out in telecommunications. It expanded into computing and networking and storage technologies. And over the years, I've done everything from helping protect nations with defense industry technologies from a cyber perspective to helping out companies that invented the touchscreen. Who knew that the touchscreen was invented right in Knoxville, Tennessee?
I did not.
These days I'm with GlobalMeet and very, very proud to be with GlobalMeet. We've been doing this for about 25 years now. And what our customers appreciate is it's our people that make the technology easy to understand and to use. We take care of all the technical details and the security details so they can just focus on sharing their message.
It's interesting. I remember, like you said, video technology was new. I remember working with a software called Big Blue Button. I don't know if you ever dealt with that back in the day. And I was working my butt off to get this company so they can do video calls with the team. That was a really hard process. Now let's jump forward. Here we are. It's 2020. COVID hits the world and every meeting on earth moves to Zoom or Teams or something else. And then this new phenomenon happens called Zoom bombing, where people are jumping on calls because we're all putting our calls on public calendars and they're throwing up child porn or other disgusting things or racism. Now, 5 years later, why do we still need to basically evolve with the times when it comes to our video and online events?
Yeah, I used to be CEO of a company called Lifesize. And Lifesize was known for 4K resolution videos that during the pandemic became extremely important because everyone who was making their product in Asia, but designing their product here in the States, there was no way to get into or out of Asia quickly. You had 2-week quarantine periods going in and coming out. And, but with 4K video resolution from anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world, you could suddenly do remote line inspections and make sure that everything was going right. As you look at the problem that you're speaking to there and that you mentioned, it's about access control. In other words, who's authorized to be on your particular video meeting? And lots of ways to control that. Sometimes it's something simple like a password. Other times it's, did you click on the link that you were given? In other words, there's a unique link per individual, and only people with their link can join from their link. No, if you will, sharing of links. There's IP domain controls of don't allow people in from this domain or do allow people in from this IP address range. We can integrate with organizations' single sign-on domain authorities. For example, if it's an employee town hall, you want to make sure that only your employees are joining. If they don't authenticate to the domain and are, credentialed in that way, they don't get to join the GlobalMeet meeting. And, the last little method that I'll talk about is even just this idea of a simultaneous login limit. If somebody's credentials are used twice to get into the same webcast, there might be an impersonator, there might be a man in the middle, who knows what might be going on there. But let's just let the one person know that's supposed to get in actually get in. And over the 25 years that GlobalMeet has been doing this, the company has refined all of those access controls to make sure only the right people are hearing the message.
But what about like a public webinar, right? Like I'm doing a webinar in a month from now and we have people signing up, but we want to put that link out there so we can get as many people in there. How do I provide access control when it's something I'm inviting the public to?
What's really important in those scenarios, and GlobalMeet is fortunate in that we support over half of the Fortune 1000 companies here in the United States. They will have large investor day meetings, for example. It might be tied to some new product rollout or some new business milestone, but they want as many people listening in as possible. What's important there is that the content that you make available is actually the content that you made and that you are making available. So as you think about, if you will, through digital signatures and posting the content and making it available for download, that that content is signed, came from your company, and is not in some way, duplicated or changed without your knowledge.
And I would guess also that who has permission to share during the meeting would also control bombing of any sort.
Well, correct. And, when you talk about audience engagement control, this is the magic when you have a few presenters, but 100,000 people in the audience, right? Not everyone should be able to just say something. Not everyone should be able to just start firing things off in a chat window. So the presenter and the producer and I emphasize the word producer of the webcast, they're there to make sure that as audience questions come in, great, let's make sure it's an appropriate question. Let's make sure that there's not inappropriate terminology, or cursing that's going on, et cetera. So having control over who attends and how the audience interacts or engages with the presenters, extremely important.
Okay, so now let's jump to a whole new problem, right? Because we got used to having meetings like this. I can't see all of you. I see your chest to the top of your head, right? Right. I'm trusting that you are Trent Waterhouse. I'm trusting that. But nowadays, we have seen a massive increase, maybe hundreds of percent increase in deep faking people on video calls. And the technology, if you just go like 6 months past to now, is light years ahead of where we were on how easy it is and how realistic it looks. So why, like the rise of this type of social engineering attack is something that people really need to be aware of. What are your thoughts on this type of attack, especially when it comes to video meeting technology?
Yeah, it's really one of the risks of AI being applied to video technology. And everybody's gotten kind of used to, because of the pandemic, this idea of virtual backgrounds, right? Well, what if it was a virtual speaker in front of the virtual background? And that's what, I was seeing some national news about how these types of deep fake video impersonations, orders of magnitude increases in this happening. And it's really a wake-up call for the industry, I think, to go back to an old idea. There's an old idea 15 years ago where you could digitally watermark a video signal. In the millions of pixels that you might be transmitting, you're embedding hundreds of pixels that kind of become the digital fingerprint that says this is the official video stream and that this is the official person speaking on that video stream, as the way to mitigate risks against these deep fake AIs. Because, to your point, if somebody fakes an executive talking about company results or talking about a natural disaster or talking about something that's going to influence the company's stock movements and stock price, that just can't happen. And I would just, in a place to keep an eye on, digital watermarking, kind of think of it as like a digital certificate for live video webcasts. I think that's where the future lies, to make sure it's authentic and from the original source.
Okay, this is fascinating. So let me ask a question on this, because I'm really curious about this. So we did an attack recently for one of our customers where we made a video of the president, the CEO, and we bought a domain that was almost identical to their website. And the video was the CEO saying, we opened up a new swag store. And before we go public with it, we want everyone here to go test it out and tell us about the quality of the stuff that we have made for our company. So we're giving every employee $75 to go spend. Here's your discount code. And because it's not public, for you to log in, you got to use your credentials. We send it to 1,000 people, right? We get something like 700 credentials. Now, listening to what you just said, you're saying that in the background, my eye wouldn't pick it up, but there would be a certain amount of pixels in some kind of format that their software on the other end that would look at that and go, hey, the pixels aren't there. That's not a certified video.
Exactly. And everybody's familiar with like a QR code these days.
Yeah.
QR codes are not the prettiest looking thing, but they also, they stand out. They're extremely obvious, relatively easy to copy and replicate. Yeah. If you look at a pixelization pattern that might be applied in a virtual background, that it's kind of the same idea as a QR code. It's just not visible to the naked eye, and it can't be copied because you don't know amongst the millions of pixels which are the 1,000 or so that actually count.
Yeah.
And so much harder to deep fake. And I think over time, you'll see the webcasting and the video transmission technologies really leverage this And, even if you're like a Hollywood studio releasing your movie on streaming, they have ways of digitally signing their movies to where you know that you're watching the real copy versus the bootleg copy. Similar ideas that the film industry has leveraged for decades now can be applied to the video streaming world. And in that way, validate that this is the official stream from the official source.
It's a really fascinating idea, Trent, because you think about this. I had a podcast guest and we were talking about AI deepfakes, and somebody had asked a question about, like, how do I know what to trust on the news? Now, imagine if, CNN or the White House, they didn't tell you where the pixels were, but they issued like a little app that you could scan a video and tell you this is an official White House video, right, or this is not, right? And again, you wouldn't know where the pixels are, but I can open up my phone and scan my TikTok or whatever and go, oh, that's not an official video. That's made up. That's fake news, right? Kind of thing. That could literally stop so many problems that we're experiencing right now.
And like, you're seeing it today in like the news article space, where there's technologies that will highlight to the reader that this content may have been AI generated.
Yes, yeah.
We're seeing that in terms of reading words off of
right.
a web page.
On Twitter, you see that kind of thing, right?
Imagine if Chrome and Safari and Firefox and DuckDuckGo and name your favorite browser.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if they all had built in just a little warning thing that would pop up that said, this may be AI generated.
And you need it on your phone. So you need it also on Android and Apple.
Amen,
because that's where a lot of people are consuming this, news. I mean, I remember during COVID, anybody who wore a white lab coat on TikTok was automatically an expert in the disease, right? And they could say anything they want, and people were passing it around.
If you slept at a Holiday Inn last night, you were a medical expert.
You were a medical expert. You could tell me how to cure COVID, right? And those are the same people. Some of them who were like, there's nanotechnology in the vaccine. Just crazy things that are impossible in our current day and age. But because they had a white lab coat on, it was taken very seriously. This idea is like going back to something so simplistic that it's almost annoying how, I don't want to use the word, but how dumb it is, but how we should be using this. Like, why are we not doing this?
Correct. I mean, you are never going to, this is something that the defense industry taught me 30 years ago. You will never be able to prevent people from breaking in.
Right.
What you want to be able to do, though, is record everything that's going on at all times, to at least know when they do get in exactly what they've been able to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's a great defense strategy out there that basically just says, yes, apply your normal firewall technologies and use encryption and do all those kind of basic things. But somebody's always going to figure out a way to kind of get around those things.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you're recording stuff. And, by analyzing recordings, especially at machine speed these days, it's amazing what you can learn. And, I always kind of jokingly say we talk about AI deepfakes a lot because of how many earnings calls and investor days and shareholder days, if you will, that are held on the GlobalMeet platform. And inevitably, at some point in the conversation, I have to weave in, nobody would want to deepfake Trent Waterhouse. I mean, who wants a balding guy that looks like me? I mean, I'm just not a pretty face.
It doesn't matter. You might have the knowledge and the power to get people to do things that could really damage a company, right? You're the CMO of a global company.
Right. So this is where, when we're talking with prospects and when we're talking with new contacts at a company, chief information security officers, CIOs, we just always remind them that GlobalMeet, we've got an InfoSec executive. We have a data privacy officer on staff. I mean, like, we make the investment to have in-house full-time security experts that are watching over what they do on our platform just to make sure everything's safe.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody in our space goes to that level of investment. And not everybody goes to the trouble of every year getting certified on all of our security certifications. And, another big certification this year, especially in Europe, is DORA. It's kind of this Digital Operational Resiliency Act.
Oh, yeah.
And, we're at the forefront of this in terms of compliance to make sure that as we're part of a company's ability to communicate to the world, imagine that company has a major cyber attack. Imagine that company the cloud goes down and they can't use their normal communications tools. This is where a tool like ours, we're intentionally built in a private cloud. See what I mean?
Yeah.
We're intentionally built in a private cloud.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we're cyber proof.
Yeah. I mean, nobody can say that, right?
Less likely. I mean, nobody would ever say they're cyber proof. It just means that we're less vulnerable because we're operating in our own private cloud. And when your regular way of communicating gets disrupted for whatever reason, we're always there as a very reliable backup solution for business continuity and crisis communications purposes.
I had another layer to some of the things you said because, you talked about firewalls and all that not being perfectly impenetrable. But I always talk about what about insider threat too? Because they're already on the other side of your firewall. They're on the other side of your IPS, right? They're on the other side of all the millions of dollars you spent on this great wall of technology. They were already trusted, right? And nowadays what we see is just because of the economy and people's unhappiness, insider threat has, if you look at initial access brokers on the dark web, they are making bank nowadays just by buying credentials from disgruntled employees. So it's already a dangerous deal, and now you add all the other things you said into it.
Well, and think about like digital leakage prevention technologies, right? Intellectual property is really the thing that companies care about the most, right? And, even a lot of companies in the financial services, life sciences, healthcare industries, they're being very cautious in their usage of AI. Because they don't want to be training a public AI engine about the inner workings of their company.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so we always just kind of point out to folks that protecting your intellectual property, we consider that one of the things that we do for folks to just make sure that nothing is put out on a webcast that shouldn't be put out on a webcast. And to your point, the people on the inside can often be as much as a threat as the people on the outside.
Yeah, it's interesting because I tell my people here that work for me, no client information, no client reports, none of our proprietary data doesn't go into ChatGPT. You're not pasting that and asking it, how do I improve this? No, because that's a public, that's getting harvested, and if we learned anything from Facebook with Cambridge Analytica, just because they're saying, no, trust us, we're not going to use this maliciously. No, I'm sorry. I don't trust anybody. Right. So no, don't put that stuff on a public website.
Amen to that.
So Trent, let me ask you, if people want to know more about you, more about this technology, what's the best place for them to go to find out?
Exactly. So obviously globalmeet.com is our website. As I said earlier, we've been doing this for 25 years. You'll see out there at globalmeet.com, you can watch a little 10-minute demonstration. But I think my main message here is think about security in your virtual meetings, your hybrid meetings, your video webcasts, just like you would any other part of your IT infrastructure. It's just as important to make sure that that tool is secure as all the other tools that are part of your IT infrastructure suite, your tech stack.
That's a great message. I always ask, what's something that companies can start doing right now? And you answered it before I asked it. So that's really, really great. I appreciate you doing that. A question I ask a lot of guests because we have really avid readers here. Have you read any, it doesn't have to be about this topic, but just any book at all. Have you read any books recently that you're like, oh man, everyone should read this?
Yeah, no, there's a book I'm reading right now, and I want to make sure I'm going to grab the cover here just to make sure I don't goof it up. But it's called Pattern Breakers. It's written by an author called Mike Maples, and it's about why some startups change the future.
Oh.
And if you say the word pattern in a cybersecurity context, I mean, intelligence and cyber.
That's where my brain went.
Pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And so this is why it caught my interest. But I'd encourage everybody to take a quick read. It's not a super long book, but it's just called Pattern Breakers. Mike Maples is the author, and it's why some startups change the future.
Yeah, you definitely threw me for a loop. When you said that, I was thinking in my head, I literally went, okay, is this going to be about one of those code breakers during the war? Or is this going to be about cracking ciphers? Like what it's going to be? And then you go, startups. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm interested. Right.
Well, what I love, and just to show you that in the world, a lot of things come naturally. What was the original encryption technology? The Navajo language.
Oh, right. That's right.
Right?
Yes.
The Navajo language was the original encryption technology. And it's like, people were speaking a language that not anybody knew what it was. Right. And it just evolved since then. And now it's about quantum encryption and quantum decryption. And, you know, I always chuckle when you talk about quantum computing. You know, if anyone ever wants to see in real life quantum computing in action, talk to a mom. That is quantum computing in action. The female mind.
They're in multiple dimensions at one time.
There are hundreds of inputs and simultaneously outputs. Yeah. Meanwhile, the male brain, it's kind of like, that IBM
Commodore 64
PC from the early 90s. You can do one thing at one time.
Yeah. Hey, well, having watched my wife with 2 kids, I can attest that you are not lying. That is 100% truth, right? I'm like a Commodore 64 and she's a quantum computer. That's 100% true. Hey, Trent, it was great having you on the show today. Really fascinating stuff. I mean, 20, 30 minutes flew by really quick. So thank you for this conversation.
Absolutely. Would welcome to come back at any time.
Excellent.
Enjoy the conversation.
Everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. All the links that Trent mentioned will be in the show notes, as well as a link to the book that he mentioned. So I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Come back next month and we'll have another security professional discussing a whole new topic. Until then, stay safe and secure. See you.